Valuation of swaps. So as we discussed in the previous example, that you locked in a swap and the rate at which you fixed this payment was 10%, and then the interest rate was low and then it was high. So here you were paying high and getting less, so there was a net effect of -1. Here it was 0 and here it was +1 because you were paying low and getting higher. And let's say this loan was for $100 million, then here this -1 would mean that you would have to actually pay up $1 million, right? Because 1% of 100 is 1, and here you would actually receive $1 million. When you calculate the value of a swap, it is actually the present value of all these future cash flows that will be there at any given point in time based on all the settlements of the different periods. So at initiation, obviously the value is 0, but as time passes, interest rates change and you might have an interest rate going up, which means you will receive some money, and based on all these future settlements, the present value of those future settlements is what is the value of a swap contract. Naturally, if the interest rate goes up, then and it goes up more than what is the locked rate, then the present value of the payments will be higher, and which is what you see in this example, that if it goes beyond 10, it goes to 11, then you will receive money, and positive cash flow means the present value will be high and it will cause a gain for the party that is paying the fixed rate and receiving the floating rate, and the party which is receiving the fixed rate and paying the floating rate is going to be at a loss. Now let's get into the summary for this learning module. First, let's talk about the similarities of FRAs and swap. Both of them allow you to lock in a rate for the future, and then the net settlement is there based on the difference between the locked rate and whatever is the market rate. Both of them have a symmetric payoff, which means if interest rate goes up, the profit of the long party goes up, whether it is a long FRA or a long swap agreement. Right? No cash is exchanged upfront. Both of them have a value of 0 at initiation, and as interest rates change, then profit or loss could be there, and definitely the loss making party might consider running away. That's why usually these transactions happen between very, very big financial institutions, because there is counterparty credit exposure in both FRAs and swaps. So these are the similarities. When we talk about the differences, naturally FRA is for one single settlement, whereas swaps are for periodic settlements because they keep going on and on for multiple periods. You can have a series of FRAs. So a swap contract is like a series of FRA, but it is not exactly a series of FRA because each FRA will have a different rate, whereas a swap has a constant fixed rate. And we've talked about this before, that if you lock in different FRAs, let's say 4% for here and 5% for here and 6% for here, but then a swap will have a 4% average or a 4.5%, whatever. The point is that a swap has a constant rate, whereas FRAs have different rates, and we have shown that calculation to you, that how a swap is priced is that you take the different FRA rates and you calculate the average of those, and that becomes the swap rate, which is the internal rate of return implied on the forward rates of the through the life of the swap. And an investor will be indifferent in receiving the different FRA rates and paying the swap rate, or receiving the swap rate and paying the different FRA rates, because they come to the same thing. It's like an averaged out rate, and the calculation was there in the previous video. Value is at initiation is 0. As time passes, interest rates change, the value will change, and how much it will change will depend on the settlement amounts. If the interest rate will go up, then definitely there will be a gain for the long party, which is the fixed rate pair, and whatever is the present value of all these future settlements is the value of the swap.